we've had a little bit of practical instruction, just a little, and we kind of had to like pull it out, like pulling teeth from everything that came before, which is supposedly a how-to. There was a lot of concept and not a lot of practical instruction. I mean, some people would have called it practical instruction. Yeah, well, obviously a lot of people did. But really, step by step, this is what you do. Rather than here's an idea of what you do. Here's a general guideline of some kind of direction to go. No, when I talk about practical instruction, I mean, do this. Here's step one, something to do. And tells me how to do it. That to me is practical instruction. But here are some actual examples of common sense knowledge. Specifics. Let's see what they are. I mean, if this material is in correspondence with reality, with respect to common sense, then these are things that we all should know and should apply across the board when they come up, when relevant circumstances come up. Knowing how to cook and how the food gets to your table. Well, maybe examples like this are going to help us get an idea, more of an idea about what common sense actually refers to. What kinds of things it actually refers to. I haven't had a lot of people telling me what kinds of things common sense is supposed to actually apply to. I mean, I've been told I don't have common sense that have nothing to do with how to cook and how to get food onto my table. I mean, things like with which I've had very little familiarity at all. You know, no experience with certain circumstances whatsoever. And, you know, what I did didn't quite correspond with what somebody else thought it should happen. Well, then, you know, I was told I had no common sense. You know, I don't have to have experience with such a thing. All I have to do is apply common sense. It's left me feeling a little bit wondering, what the heck are you talking about? How am I supposed to know how to fly an airplane in a storm when I don't know how to fly one at all? Just apply common sense. Knowing how to cook and how the food gets to the table. Knowing how to cook is basic common sense because it will ensure your healthy survival under any conditions. And no matter how infrequently you use this skill, is enjoyable and rewarding. Sounds like a little bit of a personal bias toward cooking there, but it certainly is something everybody should know how to do. If that's an example of basic common sense, knowing, I mean, for everybody to know how to prepare some food, yeah, that should be common knowledge. That should be something everybody knows how to do. But is that really an example of basic common sense? I think it's common sense. It would be common sense to agree or propose that everybody should know how to prepare their food. But the actual preparing of the food, is that basic common sense? I don't know about that. Because some people actually have to be shown how to prepare some food. Didn't we have to learn that? Didn't we have to learn how to prepare food? Somebody had to teach us how to prepare food. We watched. We learned by example. Now, how does this suddenly become common sense? I'm not doubting the issue. I'm asking. It seems it's much more clear to me that it's common sense that people should know how to prepare their food. But the actual preparation of the food, I don't know if that's called common sense. That's something we have to learn. I mean, that's a skill, you know. It's not common sense how to frame a doorway when building a house. That's not common sense. That's a skill you have to learn. Like cooking food, preparing food. I mean, we even had to be shown how to peel a banana. You know, otherwise, how would you know that you can peel the darn thing? It's not really obvious when you look at a banana. If you never saw a banana before and you knew nothing about bananas and you saw a banana, would you know that you could peel it? Rather than like bite into it and tear it apart, would you know that you could actually just go... Probably not. No. No, it's not obvious. Well, knowing how to grow your own food. Here's another example. Being able to grow your own food is an assurance of self-survival. Learn the skill if you haven't already and instill it in your kids. Maybe what they're trying to get at here is that these are the kinds of things that other people will say are common sense. Like, if you don't know these things, then they're going to say, you don't have any common sense. Okay. So maybe these are appeals to popular ideas of common sense. But I would want to think a little bit more about what these things have to do with reflective mind, all right? And divorcing ourselves from a one-sided reality, learning as much as we can about how other people perceive the world. I guess if we reflect on it enough and think about how other people perceive the world, and that, you know, everybody thinks that everybody should be able to, you know, feed themselves, regardless of whether it's preparing food, growing food, getting it to the table, or whatever, then we would conclude that it's probably good common sense that we know how to do that. All right. Trying to make sense out of some of this. You know, I mean, it's supposedly common sense. Knowing about nutrition is another. All right. Knowing and respecting your surrounds. Your surrounds. It's common sense to know what local conditions impact your life, from weather to wildlife. All right. Knowing how to budget and not spend more than you're earning. Well, that hits a spot. That hits a nerve. You know what? I know how to budget, and I know how to not spend more than I'm earning, but I have a little difficulty with money sometimes. And it doesn't arise from not knowing these things. It arises from something far deeper than that. It's very similar to my somehow I have a little bit of a, I have trouble wrapping my mind fully and concretely around the idea of having to pay rent and the idea of land ownership and boundaries, land boundaries. You know, like, this state ends here and another state, and another state begins there. Or there's this country and then there's that country. When all I see, you know, these divisions are on a map. They're on a map. You can see them on a globe. a global representation, a little desk globe, and you're going to see them on a map, but I walk outside and I don't see them. I see signs, like now entering the borough of such and such, now entering Germany, whatever. Welcome to Antarctica. But this is my property and that's your property, and I have the deed to this and you have the deed to that, and copies of the deed, and somebody owns the land, and then you have to, if you live on it, you have to pay them rent. Well, that's about like banking. I'll get a bunch of money together, and then I'll lend some to you, and you have to pay me for that favor. That's banking. And that is such a commonly accepted concept that we fail to realize that it's a scam. There is an aspect to it that is a scam. And it is one of the practices, this idea of loaning money for interest, kind of, goes back to the Knights of Templar thing. And there's this whole idea they had in order to become really rich. And it's the whole concept behind, there's a lot of talk about the banksters of our world and the elite and, their major banking system. The process of loaning money and charging interest is something we accept as the way things work, but they didn't always work like that. Apparently, they didn't. They didn't always work like that. And that it is practically, it's kind of like a legal mob thinking thing, legal mobstery. A racket. And the same with land ownership. This is my land, and now you have to pay me to get on it, to be on it. This is my money. You have to pay me to use it. Know how to budget and not spend more than you're earning. See, my whole idea about money is not quite conducive to practical budgeting and spending, because I don't really comprehend fully in a downright down-to-earth manner, even though I am, my thinking about money is polarized there. I have the grounding. I understand how it works. It's not like I'm stupid and don't know how to make a budget. Don't know how to, count money. It's just that I don't really believe in money. Therefore, I don't really care a lot about it. And I end up broke sometimes because I went and spent it when I shouldn't have, or spend it unwisely. I could be more prudent about it. It's just not something I pay much attention to. I don't enjoy paying attention to it. Let's put it that way. I don't enjoy paying attention to it because I'm not real concerned about it. I'm not somebody who walks around, frequently saying, well, I'd sure love to win the lottery. It's common sense to only spend what you have. Okay. Sadly, many people manage to forget this in an orgy of frequent overspending, behaving as if a bulging credit card debt came as a complete surprise to them. Overspending is an irrational habit. As is hiding unopened bills at the back of the closet. Make sure to get all important financial decisions and agreement in writing. From loans to sales. You can never be too careful when it comes to money. Well, I guess I could really take a lesson from that. Although I know it. I've heard it many times. I've been told it since I was a kid. How about this? Know the limitations of your own body. This includes, like which foods wreak havoc with your body, which foods work for you, knowing how many hours of sleep you need, knowing the type of exercise that benefits your body and your metabolism best, reading widely but working out for yourself what harms and heals your body. Read widely, but work out for yourself what harms and heals your body. I guess it means read widely about food. I don't know, that's not very clear. Moreover, you're no superhero. Ignoring bodily injuries is done at your own peril, such as continuing to carry heavy loads with an aching back or refusing to acknowledge constant pains. How about this one? Knowing how to analyze situations and think for yourself. Instead of digesting the pulp of media thrown at you every day and ending up in a state of fear because every second news item is a crime or a disaster, start thinking about the reality behind the news feed and start thinking about life and happenings with a healthy, open, and questioning mindset. Help free others from the fear media by teaching them how to recognize the tactics used. Yeah. Well, I didn't know that was considered common sense. Knowing how to repair items. Oh. No wonder when I say I don't know how to fix a certain thing, some people look at me as though they're thinking, this guy has no common sense. I didn't know that it was considered, common sense to know how to repair items. It just seemed to me that some people had a common sense about that. Like it came easily to them. Well, what about people that, who are not mechanically inclined and repairing things does not come easily to them? Does it mean they lack common sense? Or is the common sense part the part that would tell them that if they lack that lack the knack, then they should go out of their way to try to learn how to fix some basic items, even though they may never learn the knack of just kind of like being good at fixing whatever they come upon that needs fixed. But at least some basic items that, like household things that might need repaired. Was that the common sense part? I don't know. Let's see what it says. In a world heavily dependent upon disposal of items rather than repairing them, we're adding to the earth's burden, and we're beholden to those who manufacture items with inbuilt obsolescence because we've lost the ability to tinker and fix things ourselves. Learning how to fix or mend clothes, appliances, household objects, car engines, and many other items that are important to our daily functioning is not only liberating, but is also an important way to exercise our common sense. Okay. Alright, so it is telling us the kinds of things to learn how to repair. It's not talking about whether or not we have an innate knack for it. And it's telling us that if we learn how to do those, regardless of whether we were brought up around it or not, just take the time to get familiar with how to do it. And if you're not good with engines, just kind of like have this attraction to engines and just kind of intuitively know how any engine works, no matter which one you're looking at least, I guess, get familiar with the one that's in your car. And it says it's not only liberating, but is an important way to exercise our common sense. So this would be sense that's, considered to be common to people's experience, right? Knowing how to plan in advance. Here's another one. Knowing how to be resourceful. Resourcefulness is the art of making do. And Knowing how to connect with community. It's common sense to be a part of your community. Unfortunately, many people prefer to bunker down and remain aloof or unhindered by the others around them. Connecting with others in your community is part of being human, of relating and of opening yourself up and sharing and generosity. And then knowing how to keep safe is another area considered common sense. Knowing how to keep safe. Think prevention, not disaster. Knowing how to keep safe. And now we're getting to the end. Put new common sense thinking habits into place. Take the ideology. They say take the philosophy here, the psychology, and the popular theories behind how we think, and add this understanding to the active ways. The philosophy of how we think, I have a bachelor's degree in philosophy, and I never really heard of the philosophy of how we think. I guess if they're talking about how we know things and how we use reasoning skills, I guess that's what they're talking about here. All right, take the philosophy, whatever they mean by that, and the psychology and the popular theories behind how we think, and add this understanding to the active ways in which you can use your common sense. Good. All right. Read How to Think Outside of the Box. Is that a book? I guess. To get some ideas for restoring your sense of relying on your own innovative thinking processes. It's recommended that you read this book in its entirety. Practice mental flexibility. This is the ability to stay open-minded and listen to other people's notions and ideas, even if they scare you or derail your own thinking. Use affirmative thinking. This is a way of perceiving yourself and others in a positive manner. This is not as simplistic as chanting affirmations or thinking happy thoughts. The mental work required to maintain an affirmative, conscious mindset is hard but rewarding. We work on that a lot here in my playlist. And value ideas. This concept leads you to accepting new ideas rather than immediately knocking them on the head as unfamiliar, insane, or undoable. I do know many people who claim to have common sense and put other people down for not having any, and they're not open to new ideas. And that just doesn't make sense to me. If you put in the constant hard yards of thinking things through carefully for yourself, as well as learning all that you can about the world and other thoughts about the world, you're well placed with respect to common sense. You don't have to be highly educated. You do have to be open-minded and curious. And realize that this is a process, not a destination. Well, I gotta tell you, even this article is but one source of guidance on common sense. Analyze it, critique its applicability to your own circumstances, and cherry pick, discard, or adopt those things that don't suit you or don't fit with you. After all, doing so just makes plain common sense. And that is a good point. And I gotta tell you, after going through this with you here, I feel a little better about, how much common sense I have. I had been thinking that maybe I'm a little deficient. I don't think I'm in too bad a position, but I do know this. There are certain social circumstances that I just don't read as well as some other people who just seem to have a real knack for reading social situations and knowing the right thing to do. And when I ask them about those things, they don't know the answer. They don't know how to answer or how to explain it. They just kind of maybe, in a sense, throw their hands up and say, it's just common sense. But then I excel in areas that they don't. Areas that I think are probably even more important. But after going through this, I can, I'm on the right track with this stuff. Are you? And really, it does boil down to. It does boil down to. It's a process. It's a process. Not a destination. It's a process. There's not going to be some moment in which we arrive at common sense across the board with all aspects of our lives. And then after that, it's static. No, it's a process. And that daily closure technique, very important here for the cumulative stress thing. And there's a connection. Remember, there was a connection made right here after we suggested that there's going to be a connection among cumulative stress and common sense. All right. The end. Be well.